the other part of me is like they rushed through the ending of Game of Thrones because they supposedly wanted to work on Star Wars. Either way, doesn't look good and was a real waste. Meanwhile, HBO passes on a Game of Thrones prequel, then they greenlight one. No one knows for sure what the future of Westeros holds. All we do know is that HBO has now become the home to some disturbing Jeremy Irons nudity. Secrets of the Sire is brought to you by the Superhero Tour of New York City. Discover where your favorite superheroes save the day on the Super Tour of New York City. Receive 10% off with the code SECRETS at checkout. Go to secretsofthesire.com/onlocation. If you're in the New York City area or are planning to be, go book your tour and find out where your favorite superheroes save the day with the Superhero Tour of New York City. Secrets of the Sire starts now.
Secrets of the Sire.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Sire. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Sire Studios digital network. That's youtube.com/Sire Studios, facebook.com/Secrets of the Sire, twitch.tv/Secrets of the Sire. And we are up on all major podcasting sites, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher. We are out there. Tonight, Star Wars shocker, Game of Thrones news, Watchmen theories, and Valiant Comics' Lisa Hawkins spins the racks. I am your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my co-host extraordinary, Mr. Hassan Godwin, Lord of the Live Stream. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, it's good. It's good Wednesday.
Before we begin, just want to throw a little love. The Sire Evil variant is on Indiegogo right now. We have one more day left. Go be a part of Sire. It's a great way for new readers to jump on board. It was featured on the episode 4 of the CBS show Evil, and we decided to make a variant edition of Volume 2. So again, great way to jump on. Go to sirestudios.com/evil. And we got a Kickstarter announcement coming next month for Descendant. We'll be debuting November 12th now. We pushed it to give it a little more room between our Evil campaign and the Kickstarter campaign for Descendant. But you guys don't care about that. You guys care about Star Wars. And you care about Game of Thrones. And we have both as we get into our Sire Bites. Now, Hassan, before we jump into the Star Wars shocking news that just got released on Tuesday, or I guess late Monday, early Tuesday, whatever, the irony to the Star Wars shocking news is that Monday we were scratching and clawing when we have our pre-production meetings to find news to talk about. And we, had some backups. And instead, all this other stuff comes out. It's like, wow, it's like our prayers were answered.
It was just like Christmas. It was like you go to sleep and then you wake up the next morning and then everything is, all the news bites are under your tree.
Right. It's like Christmas for us, not for fandom. Or maybe it is for fandom. I don't know.
No, well, depending on the fandom, the angry fandom is happy.
Yeah.
Angry fandom is plenty happy right now.
So, Star Wars shocker, Game of Thrones duo quits planned trilogy. This is from HollywoodReporter.com. Benioff and Weiss, the much maligned creators of Game of Thrones, actually weren't maligned up until this past season, announced they suddenly have quit the trilogy. In a statement, they said, "We love Star Wars. When George Lucas built it, he built us too. Getting to talk about Star Wars with him and the current Star Wars team was the thrill of a lifetime, and we will always be indebted to the saga that changed everything. But there are only so many hours in the day, and we felt we could not do justice to both Star Wars and our Netflix projects, so we regretfully are stepping away." On the one end, we won't have to answer the question of whether they could actually pull off any non-sourced material or whether they screw up the Star Wars universe.
We don't have to worry about them in particular. I'm sure Disney's going to want to, go ahead with the non-Skywalker type stuff.
Oh, they absolutely will, and they have Rian Johnson's trilogy, which I will not watch. There's
a lot of speculation that that's not going to happen either.
I've seen rumors that it is not either. I think they are course correcting, and they're going to fix everything. On the other end, I posted this on Facebook too. I was just like, and Twitter. You can check us out on Twitter, Sire_Studios. I have so many feels about this.
Really? What are your
because
fears?
like, you sit there and you're like, wow, look at these guys, and they don't want to take on too much, and they don't want to screw something up the way they debatably, arguably screwed up the Game of Thrones finale.
I think when the smoke clears from the Game of Thrones thing, I think the blame's going to go to the right place. And I think, even though I absolutely adore him and adore his writing, I think the blame goes to George Martin.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. In one particular,
in that he didn't get the books out fast enough. Is that what you're going to say?
In one particular meeting, in one article that I read, they asked, one of the rare situations where Benioff and Weiss actually answered questions pertaining to that. They literally said, we ran out of material. I mean, so they literally like just put it out there. Yeah, it's like, why'd you end it so abruptly? It's like we didn't have any material to continue to do. It's not our story.
Right.
I mean, they were trying, they were making it theirs. They are not the nuanced writers that George Martin was,
right.
That doesn't mean they're bad writers. I don't really think that they're bad writers. I think they did a good job of what they had.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, one of the tricks of Game of Thrones is there's a lot of characteristic depth and gray matter in each and every one of those characters that George was able to imbue in the characters to make them all very interesting.
Yeah.
And without his insight into that, they all start to become just kind of cartoon characters. That's why I have so many feels in this. It's like, on the one end, okay, great, you don't want to rush, you don't want to do injustice to Star Wars. On the other, you rushed Game of Thrones to get to this. I don't believe that they did that.
The idea that you didn't have material is not true, though. You crammed a ton of material into 8 episodes or 6 episodes in the past.
There was no material. They didn't have any material left by the time they got to season 7. They didn't have any material.
So then they're basically admitting that they're incapable of crafting a story based off of something that without it's almost like there are some artists out there, and myself included, I am absolutely in this camp 100%, who literally can't draw unless they have reference. I literally cannot. I could draw a couple things.
If you want to spin it that way, but let's say it's the other side of it. They pitched this show to adapt these books into television shows. And then the books ran out. They ran out of books to adapt. So it's not like we're going to take this show and we're going to do some amazing stuff with it.
Yeah.
And we're going to build a franchise off of it. And we're going to build an empire. We're going to have spin-off shows. We have so many ideas based on your books. They love those books so much. And I'm headcanoning here. But they love those books so much. They said, we want to make your books into a television show. And one of the reasons he went with them, according to George, to his, is because they wanted to do the most faithful adaptation of his work that he had that they had pitched. So, okay, I picked these guys because they're going to do a faithful adaptation of my work, and then I'm not going to give them any work to do. So it's you can argue. I don't think I don't think it's wrong that they are not the writers that George is. I do not think that is a wrong description. But the thing I will say is they never claimed to be the writers that George is. They claim to be people who are adapting, and they adapted quite credibly, quite amazingly, his work onto the screen.
100% agree
until
with
they
you
ran
with
out
that
of
statement.
books.
I agree. 100% agree with that statement. Yes, and I guess everyone can agree with that statement. The thing
like his last book, like you're here's look at it from this way: that someone does mainstream, right? They're gonna, Mike, that you mainstream, you had the original run of mainstream,
right?
Mike, we're gonna turn this into a TV show. It comes out, it's like The Boys. It becomes a big hit. Everybody's like, oh, this is amazing. This is the next big thing. I guarantee you, and the comic books is way easier than a 1,200-page book. I guarantee you will have at least within 2 years, you'd have at least 2 more graphic novel size, books worth of material for them to use to keep making. So that's what you got to do, George. You had 8 years. One more book would have got you at least 2-3 more seasons.
No, I don't disagree with that assessment. However,
So-
here's the thing, though, right? They got this Star Wars gig because of the clout of their successful Game of Thrones
Yeah.
run.
Right.
It's almost like you can't have both sides of this. You can't sit there and be like, yes, we are really we're the right people to bring the next Star Wars
you gotta
trilogy
look
to
at it.
life.
You gotta look at it the other way.
But then at the same time be like, well, hey, like we didn't have any material, that's why the rest of Game of Thrones, kind of.
You're not thinking. Well, no. We're gonna write Star Wars, right? We're gonna do our own Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, right? As opposed to we're gonna adapt someone else's book, and when we run out of material to adapt, we are going to embellish and come up with our own endings and ideas.
Mm-hmm.
That's a completely different thing. If it's like a stenographer, right?
Yeah.
If I am just typing what you're saying and you stop talking, what am I supposed to do now? And I think what he means by this is, and I'm going to embellish this, and I'm going to add a little flourish to the. But that's not the job.
What I do understand of what ended up happening is George R. R. Martin gave the outline of what is supposed to happen, and so the bullet points of everything that took place, whether it was in written novel form or not, they had his outline. That's how they came to the conclusions. They just clunkily put it together
because they're not the writers that he is, and they were wise enough to realize that we are not up to the task here.
Then they should have handed off the show at that point. So I don't think you can escape blame one way or the other. I think they have the ability. They have the ability. They have the ability to pick up the phone because George R. R. Martin has written for them before and say, "Look, we just don't have this. This is gonna be majorly bad unless we have you come in here."
Who's to say that they didn't do that though? We don't know that they didn't do it. We do know that their testimony about it is that we ran out of material. That's their testimony. I do not, and we know that he is notoriously late. He's taken 8 years to write one book.
Yeah, HBO wanted 10 seasons. Remember that though, and they ducked out of it because they wanted to go do the Star Wars thing. And now we don't. And now we have
to do with the Star Wars thing because they were announced. The Star Wars thing was announced just as they were wrapping up season 7.
It was supposedly in the works for 2 years prior. It was in the
but it took them 2 years to do.
It was in the works. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it was in the works.
So what?
I'm saying that it's not as if they were wrapping up season 7 and 8 and they got this phone call from Kathleen Kennedy and they're like, hey.
But I also don't think that they got a phone call from Kathleen Kennedy and said, okay, let's just bail on this Game of Thrones thing. I think if you look at it, right, you're coming to the end of your one, your most successful opus, right? Your magnum opus. You're coming to the end of it. You want to continue working in the industry, right? This ending is going to either be very controversial or very amazing. You got to start planting seeds for what you're going to do after now while you're riding high on it because if it turns out to be a disaster, you're only going to be remembered for the end, which is basically what's happened to them. They're only being remembered for the end of it, right?
And it makes you wonder. It also makes you wonder how much they've been listening to the backlash that they don't even want to try to get into Star Wars
because
now.
I don't think there's, that's what I'm talking about. Also, if you look at Star Wars isn't exactly a stable battlefield right now.
No.
No. Kevin Feige is coming in. That means Kathleen Kennedy is eventually going to be going out. She's not very popular either. They savaged Rian Johnson. I mean, maybe deservedly so, maybe not.
Very.
It's obviously not. It's not a booming industry for Star Wars right this minute. I mean, maybe they'll turn it around. They've got The Mandalorian. They've got Clone Wars.
Which, by the way, that trailer looks awesome.
Star Wars movie. Yeah. They got that last Star Wars movie coming out. So they might just turn it around. The ship might right itself, but it's not a guaranteed thing, and it's definitely not a thing that embraces new creators. Right. So I mean, Netflix comes along and says, "Hey, we gotta give you $200 million, or you could try making a Star Wars movie after your Game of Thrones fiasco. Which one would you choose?
Yeah,
which one is your choice?"
I get it. Point? I can completely understand the logic and rationale behind it.
Yeah, because there's nothing but logic and rationale behind it.
It just doesn't speak to honor, and there's this
no
antiquated
honor,
notion of
What about honor?
of
That's the
honor
thing.
to fans.
If you but your honor is one sided, because where's the honor in telling people to adapt your stuff and then not finishing it? Where's the honor in that? If
I will
you
say
did a
this.
contract, if you do
I
a
will say
contract,
this,
we're gonna adapt this material, and you're gonna provide while we're gonna be adapting this material while you're gonna be providing new
I
material.
was
That's
not
a great business
expecting
plan.
this. I was not expecting this argument coming out of you. So
I
color me
love
impressed. Color me
I love
impressed.
George Martin, but I'm tired of us like jumping onto these talking points that have not been proven, that they jumped off of this to do Star Wars and now they're portraying Star Wars. It's like, okay, these guys are punching bags.
Well, ironically
and
enough,
maybe they
I think
are.
fans
Maybe
are actually
they are
rejoicing right now.
jerks.
See, that's the thing.
Huh?
I think fans are actually rejoicing right now because of how poorly received it is. So
Who cares what the fans are doing? The fans are rejoicing. Fans would be rejoicing if they got into a car accident. Fans' honor is not anything that we want to jump on. You know? Okay, they're rejoicing it. There's I mean, it doesn't really mean anything.
When it
It
rains,
really doesn't mean anything. The next good thing that they do, the fans are going to be right back there with them, you know, and they're going to forget
Possibly.
about all this other stuff. I mean, no one's going to forget about how Game of Thrones ended. The fans never forget. The fans never forget about the prequels. The fans are never going to forget about the sequels as long as these generations are alive. About the people who hate, but you're going to find out, just like we did with Captain Marvel and all these other things, where everybody says that there's a pile-on and there's a number of where in the aggregation is against whatever the preponderance as a argument, as most people say, that most people are against these people and these guys will never work again. The next they said these guys are never going to work in this town again, and they make a $200 million deal with Netflix. So obviously the preponderance doesn't know what they're talking about.
They made that before that finale came out.
They make that after.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, no, they didn't sign the deal after. I think they signed the deal.
But I mean, they signed a deal with.
Well, they pulled the Ari Gold. You book your next assignment before your last one comes out.
And in understanding that, I don't understand what your argument is. You're just making an argument for the sake of an argument because you understand exactly what the business acumen of these guys are.
Oh,
I completely
yes.
Why they made the choices
again, I'm not talking from
and
a business
you don't believe in honor in business. Trust me, I've talked to you. You don't believe in it. You believe in whatever gets the job done. So now you're white knighting in this particular situation.
I disagree
for the sake of this segment. That's what you're doing.
No, actually, I disagree. In fact, it's funny because part of me, having had conversations with you, am just completely stunned by
I'm the white knight.
Your placement right now in this. So, all right,
I just want the truth. I don't really care.
We're never gonna get the truth. What we will get, not.
But I mean, we have the
fact. I
want to argue the facts with you. That's all.
Okay, not fair enough. Fair enough. I will continue to infer. Game of Thrones prequel pilot starring Naomi Watts not moving forward at HBO.
Shocker.
So this is, I mean, it's one of those rains that pours kind of moments. Game of Thrones just.
Now you talk about fans being happy, because I heard a lot of people aren't happy about this particular. We're not happy about this idea.
Yeah.
First of all, it's not based on any material that George has written. So another danger zone.
Yep.
Right. And George even wanted it to be called The Long Night, and they decided to try to call it Blood Moon or something like. I mean, it was already on the weird rails, on the rails of weirdness before it even got out of the tunnel.
Check this out too. It's interesting. Just in the articles from Variety confirming with sources, it was starring Naomi Watts. The cast and crew were recently informed that HBO had passed on the project, so they didn't even get to a pilot sequence. The potential series was set to take place thousands of years prior to the events of the original series. HBO declined to comment. In addition to Watts, the pilot starred Josh Whitehouse. I don't really. I mean, I can go through a laundry list of the cast, but I don't really see anybody that I recognize besides Naomi Watts. Jane Goldman co-created the project with George R.R. Martin, whose A Song of Ice and Fire novel series served as the basis.
Yeah,
Goldman and Martin
he was going to be a
story, with Goldman writing the teleplay. She would have also served as showrunner. She and Martin were executive producers. So it's the pilot was one of several Game of Thrones projects that were put into development. At this time, none of the other projects are believed to be moving forward either. So this is according to Variety.
That's not what I heard, though. I have heard that his that the Fire and Blood
Where are your
might be
sources?
moving forward.
Where are your sources? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. That was our conversation from last week. But no, you are correct. The Game of Thrones prequel, House of Dragon, gets HBO series order as per the Hollywood Reporter. So there is some life in Westeros after all, but still quite a week for the Iron Throne.
No,
The seventh and final season proved to be the most divisive amongst fans, many of whom criticized the direction of the
final.
show.
It's the 8th and final.
Yeah, well, that was
So that's
Variety.
incorrect.
Oh, wait, no, the 7th and final season. So both seasons. I read that. I gave that the wrong.
Okay. All right.
Annotation there.
That was poorly written, though.
Yes, not very well written.
You shouldn't preface it like that. Okay.
Okay,
go ahead.
So it's very highly divisive. So it's just a question of, is HBO? See, HBO does strike me as smart enough to know when enough is enough too.
Maybe so. I mean, they also wanted 2 more seasons of Game of Thrones. I mean, you never know. You don't. That's why I'm saying. I'm saying
they wanted 2 more seasons. They wanted 2 more seasons like 5 years ago. 5 seasons ago. They wanted it to keep going because the story was really good and it didn't feel as truncated. I think you and I both agreed too when we talked about those last 2 seasons that had they just done 2 full seasons, 10 episodes instead of doing these. I
agree. I'm not into. I will argue with you the merits of whether what we got was good or not, or was good or bad. I will argue with you the merits of whether that story made a connection or didn't make.
Yeah.
What I don't want to argue is the reason behind it, because then we're all getting into speculation, whose fault it was, and all this stuff fell apart. I mean, ultimately, yes, we should
do a blame pie. Can we do a blame pie?
And spin it and just spin it. Ultimately, the like the stupid saying goes, a fish rots from the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, whoever's in charge is to blame.
Right.
But then how high up in that chain do you want to go? Right. So that's another thing that's like, who cares about the blame?
Right.
I mean, obviously these guys are talented, because they gave us 6 years before these last 2 seasons, right? So that's indisputed. That's not disputed. That's indisputable. Those are facts, right?
Yeah.
Obviously they're talented. They're creators in their own part. They were both accredited writers. One of them was a novelist before they even did this. And wrote the 25th Hour. Blah blah blah. So
one of them wrote Gemini Man. So throw it up there. We just don't know. All right.
What does that mean, though?
It bombed and it wasn't good.
We don't know. Did you see it?
I heard it was terrible.
So you don't know why it bombed. See what I'm saying?
That's
what I'm talking about.
Something I have seen.
That's what I'm talking about.
Watchmen, episode 2.
Whatever.
When we come back, an interesting theory.
Crap segue.
Interesting theory. Is Ozymandias Jeremy Irons? And if so, who's those butlers and maid? Who is that? Doctor?
Are you honestly wasting time on this?
When we come
segue?
back. Hi, this is Michael Dolce, host of the Secrets of the Sire podcast and creator and writer of The Sire, the superhero forced by his own costume to fight evil. It's kind of like having a spider sense, but instead of warning him of danger, it actually puts him in danger. I want to talk to you about a super cool event in the Sire world that just took place on Thursday, October 17th. My character was featured on an episode 4 of the hit CBS show Evil. It featured a pinup from our most recent trade, Sire Volume 2, Lost in Time, and the artwork was by Andrew Mangum and Gene Jimenez. I got to tell you, it was one of the coolest things ever to happen to see my work featured on TV, even if it was just in the background as set dressing. So to celebrate, I thought, why not create a campaign featuring Andrew and Gene's amazing pinup as a variant cover to the original trade. It's also a great way to introduce the Sire to the Indiegogo community, which is something I've been wanting to do for a long time now. So if you like 90s superhero action about a guy who has no control over being a superhero and has gotten critical praise from sites like Newsarama, Comic Buyer's Guide, Wizard Magazine when it was still around, and more, then you've come to the right place. So let's celebrate the Sire's appearance on the hit show Evil on CBS, and let's welcome him to the Indiegogo community together. Thanks. Welcome back to Secrets of the Sire. Secrets of the Sire is brought to you by all of our beloved patrons, dedicated fans, Tom Osa, Craig Caruso, Einar Peterson, Matt Byer, Ashley Haikai, Omar Morales, Brian Phillips. Congratulations. Got married last week. Awesome wedding.
Saw that.
It's very exciting. Actually went off without a hitch. Steve Hovecki, our program director. Stephanie Dolce, and as always, our Uber fan, Christina Dolce. Go check out Stephanie Dolce's new recipe book. It's on Amazon. Go look up her name and look up the words recipe, and you will find her on Amazon. So go, sis, go. All right. Watchmen has just been fantastic. Just from a pure, like you kind of said in the last segment, creative sense of this is not Watchmen, but it has, to me, it always, you didn't say this, this is my interpretation. It feels.
Yeah, don't put words in my mouth, man.
It feels like Watchmen. It feels edgy. It feels daring. Episode 1 came out and completely shocked everyone. Episode 2, there wasn't anything shocking necessarily, but there's things starting to come more clear into perspective. So this is our spoiler alert. If you haven't seen episode 2 yet, don't check this. Keep us running, keep us streaming. Just turn the sound off, and you'll be okay.
But you're saying it didn't do that well, though, right?
No. They don't. It's HBO is the first one. They said they did it.
Post the ratings for the.
They said it did really well. I didn't go digging up the ratings. I'll go next week and we'll dig up some ratings.
I think we'll say it again because of the controversy behind it, and how heavy
Yeah.
If it did really badly, everybody would have heard about it. Because that would have been that would have been 150,000 clickbaits.
And the thing about it, I actually read this really great.
The Walking Dead almost every year now.
Right.
It's starting to actually get obnoxious.
Right.
It's it's been on for 10 years. It could withstand a ratings drop. Okay. So
I read this great article though too, and it's like nothing. Ratings mean nothing now, because if you think about it, Netflix said that for some of their series they get like 25 million views from subscribers, but they don't tell you what a view means. So it could be literally 3 seconds, it could be 10 seconds,
which is good, which is kind of a good thing, because that means something you really like might last a lot longer for whatever reasons.
Sure.
And that's a bad thing, because now there's no explanation as to why certain things disappear.
Well, network
because,
TV right. Network TV's in a free fall when it comes to these things. A 2 million rating, 10 years ago, you'd have been dead by the second episode. Now a 2 million rating, Walking Dead gets 3.5 million. And that's 7 million below what they were averaging a couple years ago, but it's still significantly higher than anything else
because of all the competition that's out there.
Correct.
But the thing is,
plus 7 day, people don't watch it the day of now. I mean, they were even saying, the Watchmen rating, it did really well streaming live, and that's the rating that they were but they don't even know what's the 7 day
because of DVR.
Yeah,
DVR has changed the whole.
I mean, I watched it Monday morning. I was tired Sunday night. I was like, I'll watch it in the morning, and that's a playback. And then
I
maybe
almost
3 days
don't
later,
watch anything now.
Yeah.
At the time it comes out, I think almost absolutely nothing I watch is not pre-recorded.
And some people want the binge factor. They want to wait till 3 episodes are out, 6 episodes are out. So ratings it's such a weird thing. Suffice to say though, the show is being responded to very highly by critics. It hasn't been renewed or anything like that, but I got to imagine HBO will continue to see this thing through. Couple things that kind of came more clear into picture in this episode, and then I want to get into just one aspect to it that I thought was really fascinating, and a theory that I found, because I think that's kind of fun to kind of play around with. One, we started to piece together, Lou Gossett Jr.'s past. The note that was written, watch over this boy from the first episode, was written on the back of another historical event, which I did know about, thankfully, this time around. I did know how Germans were actually sending leaflets out into the ether. I can't remember if it was World War I or World War II.
World War I.
Yeah, which doesn't line up 100% correct then, because if he was serving in World War I, in 21, I guess. No, actually, it does serve up, because it came up. Yeah, it came out beforehand, right? that's where the leaflet came from. So that was and it's still there. And that was pretty, like, that was another. I'm a history guy, so anytime you can kind of utilize a historical event as small or as, a detail like that, I think it's really cool.
Okay.
Second, we learned that Adrian Veidt is obviously Jeremy Irons. He's definitely still there, but his butlers, and we'll get more into this in a little bit, clones in some way, shape, or form, or something strange going on with them.
Oh, we technically didn't learn that. Then, if we're still speculating, then we didn't learn it. We get more information that they might be. Yes,
and then finally, the thing that I thought was kind of cool, and it's something you don't like about the show right now, just from our conversations, or at least this is me putting words in your mouth, potentially. It is adhering to the Watchmen formula by having a murder mystery. Like, it didn't even register for a second, because I was so taken aback by the first episode. But the first episode is exactly the way the graphic novel kind of opens, is who murdered the comedian. And now we have this, who murdered the chief of police. And we're starting to learn.
It is as if the entire fight in the beginning with Ozymandias and between Ozymandias and the comedian were an entire hour-long episode.
Yeah.
And then ending with him being
right.
Ending with Ozymandias still being in concealment, so us not knowing who is who, and ending with him being thrown out the window.
Right.
And then us trying to figure. And then the next episode would start with Rorschach showing up to investigate the crime scene.
Right. So
I don't know where you got that from, because I didn't say that a murder mystery is what.
No, you were annoyed by. We still don't really kind of know what it is yet.
You know what it is? We don't really know what's going on. I don't mind a mystery. I mean, this episode made it a little better because it is very slowly revealing little pieces of information about the people that we're following. Of course, there's this giant mystery that we're all gonna try to discover, right? We're all gonna try to work out on our own. But there's very little story. It's hard to explain. There's very little story that doesn't rely on explanation. And then there's very little explanation, because even in episode 1, when we were waiting to find out that we were going to be solving a mystery, because the person who was going to be killed, whose death we're going to solve in some way, had not been killed yet, right? We still had a ton of back information that we didn't have on the goings on that led up to the murder. So we still didn't really know who the Cavalry was. We still did. I mean, we didn't know what the what is it? The night that was depicted at the beginning of this episode. What did she call it? The night that they tried to assassinate all the cops.
The White Knight.
The White Knight. We still didn't really know what the White Knight was, right? So I think they could have put a lot of exposition in episode 1, just so we could set these little nuggets up, so that we could be ready for this mystery. But in my opinion, and I know it's not necessarily that this is not going to be successful. When I criticize something, I'm not talking about whether it's going to be successful or not.
Right.
Whether it's not going to be popular or not. When I criticize something is, I don't know if the story is going to hold together long enough for them to be able to keep slow feeding us this information. And here's one of the everybody's learning from Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones is at the moment, even with that bad ending, even with the ending, the controversial ending, because I don't necessarily think it was a terrible ending, but it was a controversial ending. It's the gold standard for long form, giant cast television, right? At the moment, right? They're learning all the wrong lessons and everybody's learning the wrong lessons from Game of Thrones. Walking Dead thinks it's just kill people randomly to keep shocking the audience, right? Walking Dead has lasted 10 years, so maybe they're not wrong. But that is not the lesson of that is not the lesson of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, basically, the lesson you learn from Game of Thrones is how do we keep you invested with all these characters for 8 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start from the beginning. Now, Watchmen, we know the comic book. We had the comic book,
Right?
but now you're going to bring us back to the comic book, and you're going to bring us into it 30 years later. So we've got 30 years of history that we don't know anything about. We got 30 years of sequential storytelling that we don't have. It's a couple of missing graphic novels in the middle, and we picked up the fourth graphic novel after the first successful story.
Right.
Because you're picking it up, you're starting with Act 2 or Act 3 almost in the story that you're trying to tell us now. Relying on doing Acts 1 and 2 in flashbacks. It's crucial if you're going to try to tell this kind of story to have as much linear storytelling as humanly possible in the story that we're following in order to uncover everything from the past. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
And by throwing Hooded Justice, the whole Hooded Justice sequence in, and throwing these other these past flash scenes
but
in.
That's what the original graphic novel did too. I mean, we didn't really.
The original graphic novel didn't really. I mean, it gave you.
Well, we didn't understand certain things until well into the 5th or 6th issue, 6th or 7th issue. I mean, even this whole subplot with the ship and the boat and how that was the metaphor for Ozymandias' struggle.
You know why? That there are certain things that they threw in at you that it took you a while to figure out, but they gave you the mystery right away.
Sure.
You knew exactly, you were grounded, and you knew exactly what was going on. You gave me the mystery of that the comedian had been killed. You gave me the mystery that Rorschach and the owl and Miss Jupiter, they were all a team at some point. They were all adjacent to each other. They all knew each other to the point, and that they were all retired. This is all information you got in the first issue. They were all retired and past it, and mournfully retired, right?
Yeah.
Regretfully retired. And what you slowly started to unpack was how the team broke up, as well as starting to reveal some of the cracks in the armor of the veneer of some of those characters. Like you find out that the comedian was not a hero; he was more of an ass, right?
Right.
And then you find out a little later that he was more sympathetic, or had more human qualities that even he was letting anybody in on, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, but because we had the foundation, we had that through line of who killed the comedian. And who are the players in the story of people who are going to find out who killed the comedian? Not to mention that the chapter breaks that you had were info dumps of information that embellished the past world that we didn't see. So they weren't showing us, copious flashbacks that we have to piece together. They were giving us information, and then by the time they showed us, like the sequence with the original Sally Jupiter, with her mother,
right,
and the comedian and stuff, like, you knew who these people were, and you knew what was going on. So you knew the Hooded Justice was a little suspect, and you knew there were a lot of things you knew about it. So what I'm talking about is this: I think I understand what they're doing with the mystery, and I know with the mystery that you're gonna throw as much stuff against the wall at people and have the audience try to decipher all of it. I know one of the things, because of modern day storytelling with social media, you want to get everybody on the internet talking as much as humanly possible about it, speculating everything. What always usually falls apart with these things is that if someone figures out the answer, the game's cooked. Now what you want to get them to do is you want to be world building. You want to keep people. I don't know if the right.
Well, it's funny you mentioned world building. It's funny you mention
people invested until while you're actually uncovering the mystery.
But I even love the fact that Hooded Justice is the centerpiece of this documentary on all the stuff that we kind of knew from Watchmen. It's going to be our entry point, and for people who haven't read the graphic novel, I think that's going to be their entry point into the graphic novel's backstory and world. And it's also at the same time revealing something new for us, because he was the one character in the graphic novel that got, he had like one moment, I guess, or one or two moments in the flashback sequences, and then was really never touched upon again. He was a tertiary character, side character. So then to keep the same style that the graphic novel did, bringing it to the TV show, and then also
I don't know I think we're in disagreement that they're keeping the same style. I think people believe that it's the same style because it's being told in a non-linear fashion.
It feels that way, yes.
Yeah, but I don't actually think it's successfully being told in a non-linear fashion. I think the other story, because Alan Moore is a brilliant writer, I think the other story had a through line, a very sharp and very strong through line that you didn't know, that wasn't a mystery. Yeah. That was like, okay, someone obviously killed the comedian. Someone obviously went into his house and killed the comedian. And then you had a foundation to stand on while you uncover how Dr. Manhattan happened, who is in on what, and all this other stuff. I think for a story that complicated, you got to give us something very simple to hold on to. Yeah. Once you're done, I'm going to know. Once the story's over, I'm going to know who killed the comedian. That's the only thing I want to know. When you don't have a simple question and answer when you approach this iteration, because you're one of yours, like, I want to know how this ties into the comic book. I want to know what's going on with the Cavalry. I want to know that number. The first thing I want to know who killed the chief. I want to know what Luke got. I mean, you're walking in it with like 4 or 5 different dangling concepts. Yeah, but the first one you mentioned, though, I think the layperson who hasn't read it, has no idea it's a comic book, is not going to come in with that. They're just going to see. I'm curious as to how. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, will people's attention span hold out long enough while you're dangling all these parts without giving them a through line? Right. I'm not saying that they're not going to be people who are interested in it. I'm not even saying it's not going to be. No, good. My point being was, I'm curious to know what a layperson thinks of the show. I'm very, very interested to see. I mean, you can't really ask anybody in our circle, because none of them are lay people. But what I'm just talking, I'm not even talking about, like, I'm just saying. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I'm just jumping. I know. I'm just jumping aboard. I know. Jumping aboard what you said. You mentioned Dr. Manhattan and his backstory. That was probably the most thrilling. Well, maybe not the most thrilling, because the cliffhanger at the end kind of had me very curious. But the Adrian Veidt scene was pretty intense. The nature of Jeremy Irons' creepy servants is one of the biggest questions in Watchmen, but it's possible that Mr. Phillips could actually be Dr. Manhattan. This is according to Screen Rant, or rather a clone of his human alter ego, John Osterman. Phillips and Veidt's maid, Miss Crookshanks, Sarah Vickers, appeared in Watchmen's pilot, happily serving their master. This includes acting in a bizarre play Adrian wrote called The Watchmaker's Son, which we got to witness in this episode. And their twisted performance gives the powerful impression Veidt is mocking Dr. Manhattan and his dead girlfriend, Janie Slater, via Phillips and Crookshanks, who could be their genetically engineered doppelgangers. Could be. Though Watchmen hasn't explicitly declared Jeremy Irons is playing Adrian Veidt, it leaves little doubt that Irons' mystery man is indeed Ozymandias. There's a tie-in website that also gives supplemental materials, but it basically maybe further erasing doubts. Still a maybe. Is he declared he was writing a play, a tragedy in 5X called The Watchmaker's Son, and now that it has been performed, it's absolutely about Dr. Manhattan's tragic origin, a tale Veidt knows horribly well. Doesn't necessarily mean that's Veidt. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It's a good hypothesis, but we don't know it for certain. By claiming anything for certain is a mistake. Yeah, I know. This is another way that people can kind of be brought into Watchmen, the graphic novel, without having
to have read it, because every fan of Moore and Gibbons' graphic novel, or even the Zack Snyder movie, even though it has nothing to do with it, the Watchmaker's son picks up the story's tragic end in 1959 at the Gila Flats Research Lab. Dr. John Osterman and his girlfriend, desperately in love, but John mistakenly left his father's pocket watch in their creation, the intrinsic field generator. After going to retrieve the watch, Osterman is sealed inside and is disintegrated, only to reemerge weeks later as Dr. Manhattan. The Watchmaker's son. What did you think of that scene when the guy gets burned alive, and then you reveal that there's multiple clones of the butler inside?
Well, at the time, I thought they were robots, so I was like, okay. But I mean, like, once they burned him and they pulled out a charred carcass, I was like, okay, they're clones.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was always under the impression that they were creations of his,
Yeah.
I mean, just by the dialogue in the first one about how they didn't know how to cook, because they made that terrible birthday cake that you could tell by Jeremy Irons' face was horrendous, and they tried to cut it open with a horseshoe. Oh my God, a horseshoe. And he's like, that is a horseshoe. That is not a knife. So obviously there's something off with the staff, right? So. Yeah. And I mean, they're adults. They seem with it enough that they should know the difference between some of these, certainly between utensils, and then perhaps they should, maybe if you think that they're in the home professional industry, they should know how to cook a cake.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously there's something up with them. I don't know if that's Ozymandias. It could be Adrian Veidt. It could be. And he is one of my favorite characters from the book, and I love Jeremy Irons, so I think that would be that's a great get if that is him, but we just don't know that's him yet. So I'm not willing to cash in on who or what anybody is just yet until I am told. I'm not against you speculating. I'm not saying we shouldn't speculate.
No, yeah,
Shut the heck up and you're ruining it. But I myself am not gonna get into that game, because the Dr. Manhattan thing. They said Dr. Manhattan cannot take human form. They said it in the show. Now, could be that it's another red herring and they're throwing that at us. Mm-hmm. And that either Lou Gossett Jr. is Dr. Manhattan, or that that one of Veidt's servants is Dr. Manhattan for real or whatever. But to me, and I could be dead wrong, and I'm prepared to take the heat if I am, if you tell us it can't happen, and they go, whoops, jackpot, it did happen, I think that's bad, right?
I don't think that is. You said this to me off air.
They didn't have to look at it the other way. They didn't have to go through the motion of telling us it couldn't happen.
Look at Ghostbusters. Don't cross the streams. And we have to cross the streams. It's the only way we're going to stop Stay Puft.
No. That's not quite how that works. If I tell you don't cross the streams, and then at the end I make a big deal of, okay, we could cross the streams now, and you say, well, wait a minute, you told me that crossing the streams was bad. And they made a big deal out of it, and then it's like, but the door swings, blah blah blah. It's a completely different analogy than a piece of throwaway dialogue of Doctor. I mean, if they had thought, okay, you are Dr. Manhattan, and he made a big deal. No, Dr. Manhattan can't take human form. So obviously,
how would they know that he can't take on human form, though? See, there's I'm not
talking about this. Here's the thing. I'm not talking about what they know. I'm talking about the information that we are being given and the manner in which we are being.
But you always have to question who's giving the information.
Yes, but you have to. But there's also a manner in which the information is given, which makes what the information that you've been given either good information or bad information. Okay, and if it's a big deal in your story that Dr. Manhattan is one of these characters, but you don't want the audience to think he's one of these characters, then the one thing you don't do, and you should know this as a writer, is suggest he might be one of these characters. That's the thing you don't do if that's one of your goals. So if that's what they did and that's what they're doing, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Lou Gossett Jr. I don't think Lou Gossett Jr.'s character is.
Of course, he's not. He's something else.
That's something else.
You're not gonna unleash the controversial sandstorm of depicting a real horrible racial, injustice that happened in our country, and then just turn the one witness who was there into a blue guy. You're not going to do it. It's not going to happen.
No, I don't think so either.
You're not going to do that, and I don't think Dr. Manhattan's going to be wasting time with Vite, doing plays and reenactments of the disaster that got him killed. I think that's a bad theory. I think those are bad theories. No,
but if it's the clone, if it's based off of it.
Maybe, that's not what you said. The article said. You said the article suspects that one of them is actually Dr. Manhattan, and that definitely one of them could be a clone of the original. Yeah, that could definitely be, and the information that they've given us, it wouldn't. The fact that he was one of those characters is a clone of the original Dr. Manhattan would not be it. Would not be ruined by the information that they've given us. Yeah, right. We have
to go to the screen and just compare penises, and then we'll be okay.
You can do that.
Let us know what you think. What did you think of
here?
What did you think of episode 2? What is your reaction to Watchmen series so far? For us, it's definitely been a lot of fun covering. We'll continue to cover this as we go along. All right, when we come back, we go spinning the racks.
Oh, look. Kid Harington's fighting Cersei again.
Yeah.
Ain't that something? Ain't that something?
Are they gonna bring Daenerys in? Are they gonna?
Yes.
Marvel's attempt. This is Marvel's attempt to
do it all.
Just to retcon the ending of Game of Thrones, isn't it?
Maybe so. Maybe this will be how they do it.
They're gonna do it.
Secrets of the Sire.
Welcome back to Secrets of the Sire. Just wanted to remind folks that Secrets of the Sire is brought to you by On Location Tours, the superhero tour of New York City. You'll see over 40 filming locations for movies and TV shows like The Avengers, Spider-Man, and Jessica Jones. Receive 10% off with code SECRETS at checkout. Was at a convention just last week on Friday. Ramon Gill.
That was recently. You could have stuck with
Friday.
Recently.
It was Friday. And it was DiversityCon in New York City at FIT. It's put on by the administration, but headed by Ramon Gill.
Was it so diverse that you had a fit? Was it?
No. I was happy with the diversity. I was invited. I was inclusive. It was inclusive of me. So that's all I want.
FIT, you said. So I'm sorry.
Oh, fit.
So diverse.
That was a terrible joke.
Yeah, but you didn't stop you from missing it. I win.
I caught up with Lisa Hawkins from Valiant, and we sat down. We had this tremendous interview, and here we decided to do today. We decided, why don't we spin the racks, Valiant comic style, with Lisa Hawkins. Here's my interview with her.
Spin the rack, spin that rack.
Lisa Hawkins, Valiant Entertainment, welcome. You are spinning the racks with Hassan and Mike. How's everything going?
Oh, everything's going so super. Thank you guys for having me.
And you guys, now you were on here last year. It was our first live event. You actually came at the comic store,
at the toy show.
Yeah, which was very memorable.
Toy store.
No, it's the comic book store. It's a comics and toys.
But I almost had nothing to say at that time. It was like Punk had just was just being announced. I now I have so much more to say.
Well, I know, and that's the cool thing that I was really excited to talk about. But let's start with one of our favorite characters is Bloodshot, and you guys had the movie trailer out. Things are getting hyped.
Yay!
And you guys
it's so exciting.
How does that feel around the offices too, just to kind of see? Because it's for those who don't know, I mean, Valiant Comics was a 90s mainstay. It was brought back, I guess maybe 10 years ago now at this point. I mean, it might have been even less than that. And all the characters, that we loved growing up in the 90s kind of got a fresh start with the new Valiant. And now to see it kind of move into movie territory is really, really exciting. What was the the feeling at the office when the trailer got released?
Well, we were super excited. The trailer is amazing. Yeah, we were all just really very excited to see it happen.
Yeah.
And the response has been overwhelming. People seem to really love it and want to see this movie, and
Yeah.
we couldn't be happier. I think
No.
The Office, everybody's very, very happy.
And now you got Tim Seeley jumping on the comic book. And what can you talk to us about the new Bloodshot?
Well, that's one of my babies. It's wonderful. It's exciting. It's an adventure, a roller coaster ride. Anybody who wants to know about this character can jump on from the very first issue and know exactly who he is by the end of the first issue, which is, it's good. It's very inviting for a new reader.
That's very exciting, and that's something we miss too in comics is accessibility. I feel like once the series gets started, it becomes less and less accessible for someone to just kind of jump in these days. So it's great to be able to kind of, especially with the movie coming out, to be able to kind of jump right in.
Right, exactly, and we're really honing in on it in Valiant. We're having a 0 issue that's going to come out in February when the movie comes out. So it's another jumping on point, and it starts right before our series number 1 starts.
Yeah.
So it sort of leads the reader right into it. So if they like the movie, then they'll like the book. Another
Valiant mainstay that's coming out in November is Rye with Dan Abnett and Juan Jose Rip. What for those that are unfamiliar, what's the difference between Rye and Bloodshot, being that they're very similar looking characters, just in the sense they've always been in that sense. But what's the take on Rye? This
both have the blood of heroes.
Yeah, well, but yeah,
All right. Well, I mean, they are similar because they're basically cousins. You understand that, right?
Yes.
They were. Well, I don't want to go deep into the weeds here, but they're created by the same person, essentially.
Yep.
And that's hence why they look very similar. However, I really wanted to break that apart, which is why I have my new Rye coming out with a lot more hair, because I wanted him to look, not quite as much as like his cousin. He is. I'm so excited about this series. This series, they're all my babies. This one's very near to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
When I pitched this series, I called it The Adventures of Samurai Jack and Astro Boy. Because and it is a bit of Road Warrior, a bit of Lone Wolf and Cub, but really, I mean, Rye in this series is tackling big issues. What he's done before, and where he wants to be, and the hero he wants to be, the person he wants to be, and I don't want to tell you much. It's a sci-fi fantasy blast, and please pick it up because it's great, and that's Rye.
So it's funny. I mean, I'm going through a lot of the stuff that you guys have, and there's a lot of characters from when I was a Valiant fan in the 90s that come around. Dr. Mirage is doing very well, Quantum and Woody. But then the thing that I've noticed about Valiant over the last few years, though, too, is you guys are really creating new characters. You have Visitor from Paul Levitz. Now, what's the story behind a lot of the newer stuff that isn't necessarily contained in the original Valiant universe?
Well, it's whether or not it can fit in the Valiant universe.
Mm-hmm.
Is this story a Valiant story? And if it is, well, then it has legs.
Mm-hmm.
There's several new IP.
Yeah.
IP stories coming out next year and the year following. So look for it. It's great. I can't tell you more about that, unfortunately. Yeah. I can say mine is more of a science fiction story, like Rye, science fiction fantasy. Okay. So that's all.
All right. October 2019. That's now. See, so you can definitely talk about Roku. Cullen
Yes,
Bunn.
it comes out tomorrow. Go buy it. Yes.
Cullen Bunn is one of my favorite writers. What is
Me
the elevator
too.
pitch on Roku?
Oh, high acting volume. It's John Woo to 11. It's just go fight, fight, fight. It's nonstop action. A lot of fun. It will introduce another side to this character.
Mm-hmm.
And place her in a place in the Valiant universe where she can go anywhere.
Where do you foresee the Valiant universe in the next couple months? I mean, I guess in a way you obviously know where the future of the Valiant universe is going, but in terms of, are you guys going to be bringing back characters that we've seen already, or is it do you see you guys going into more direction of just continually new IPs to kind of keep going?
No. It's definitely we are bringing back fan favorites.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people you haven't seen in a long time will be showing up next year, as well as completely new IP. So it's anybody's guess. It's exciting.
What creators do you have your eye on that you'd love to bring in and have a dose at some Valiant?
Well, I can't tell you because I've already got them. Okay.
You fibbed.
Yeah.
You
well,
fibbed.
I'm excited.
You said you could tell us so much more.
Well, okay. Well, it's all good. And unfortunately, until things are announced, I can't say anything. What can I tell you? I can tell you that there's been a lot of excitement going on.
Are creators seeking you guys out with stories now?
Yeah, they are. People are excited about what the changes in Valiant right now.
Yeah,
that's what I hear when I go to Comic-Con conventions. Everybody's talking about how the new direction is really just exciting them, and it excites me. So.
What specifically? When you talk about the new direction? What specifically do you mean when like if I'm a creator out there? Do I think of Valiant as I have this story that isn't connected to the universe, but maybe it could be? Do I bring it to them? Is it something like just go into a little more detail on that?
Okay. Well, I mean, if you have a great idea, that you think could be part of it, you obviously have to get in touch with somebody.
Well, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I've had like prose writers reach out to me and come up with this fantastic storyline, and I was like, this is great. And then I pitched it, and it went through. So now I have this new IP. It's not coming out anytime soon, unfortunately, but it's great. It's great. And it's not a comic book writer. It's a New York Times bestseller type of person.
Yeah.
Prose writer.
It's a prose writer, exactly. But
that sounds going through his database right now. He's like, is it this one? Is it this one?
No, it's not him. No, it's not him.
But it's so exciting. It's just so exciting, and I can't wait. I can't wait to bring it out there for you guys. And I have a new pitch that, oh God, I wish I could talk about right now, but
I know.
Alas.
I know this.
What
is
are
more...
you eating right now?
She's
like,
eating Valiant.
Eating or drinking something. I mean, something she can tell us, right? What was your what do you have for dinner tonight?
I had spaghetti. It wasn't very exciting.
Oh, it wasn't.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's good. No, you know what though? That was a good litmus test, because if you told us the spaghetti was really exciting, then that would actually lower our like
we know you
excitement.
were padding the entire thing.
Right.
No,
but was good.
It really wasn't.
This is probably a little more of a business end question. You may or may not have the answer, but like I look at things where you guys can like pre-order the bundle edition of like Bloodshot and Dr. Mirage, and there are companies like TKO right now that are doing things that are a little outside the box. in terms of how retailers can order books. What do you guys talk about at the offices in terms of like, breaking new ground in terms of reaching new readers? The bundle. I think the bundle is pretty cool in terms of being able to do that. But what other innovative ideas do you guys have in terms of distribution and just getting new readers?
Well, that's really not. I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no, that wouldn't be for me. I know what I'm trying to do is like I look at my books and I say like, okay, I look at something like a Forgotten Queen or a Punk Mambo or a Dr. Mirage, and I say, okay, that's sort of my homage to Karen Berger and Shelley Bond. That's my Vertigo books. And I look over at my Bloodshot or Roku, and I think, okay, those are my action adventure books. Those are my my hardcore, action, superhero books.
Yeah.
Something like a Rye or the other books that I'm developing, they could be more of the sci-fi fantasy books. So I put them in the genres.
Yeah.
And then pitch it like that. Like this is who I'm going for.
That's awesome.
The audience.
No, that's awesome. What?
And I'm going and I can throw something else out. I'm doing a YA book. So I'm creating a YA book. There you have it. Something else new.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's awesome.
The YA industry is just blowing up for graphic novels and comics too. I mean, it's right. I mean, I feel like that's the next big thing. Mm-hmm. So is the YA book for Faith? Are we talking Faith, or is this?
No, you're not getting anything else from me. No, I'm not saying anything else.
Well, Lisa, this has been a pleasure because I love hearing about Valiant. And next time we talk to you, you're going to have even more stuff you can't tell us, right?
Yeah, well, and I can also tell you other things that are happening that aren't from me, but there are wonderful things down the pike. I mean, as you said, The Visitor is coming in December. In January, it's Quantum and Woody, and then there are more wonderful things right off the bat. Valiant's going to have a banner year next year.
Well,
so stay on board.
Stay
Valiant.
You guys have, well, first of all, Hassan used to work at Valiant many years ago.
Don't many me that many times.
It's funny how the Valiant Wizard chain just intersected a lot in so many ways with a lot of alumni, kind of passing through both offices. So you have two folks here who just root for Valiant Comics and love a lot of the brands. So Lisa, thank you so much. We really appreciate you spinning the Valiant comic book racks.
Always a pleasure, and thank you for listening. And go buy Valiant and buy Roku tomorrow. Yay!
I'm hitting my comic store, so I will definitely pick it up. I'm very excited about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Want to thank our guest Lisa Hawkins. Lots going on with Valiant Comics. A lot of big name creators doing some really awesome things there, and we love being able to kind of clue everyone in on what's going on in the comics world, as that is the foundation for all the movies and TV that people are just consuming like crazy. Next week, we're going to give you our in-depth review of Terminator Dark Fate, much to Hassan's chagrin. And in 2 weeks...
Much.
Next week, we also welcome Todd Black on. He is a Kickstarter creator, so we'll spin the racks with Todd. And in 2 weeks... we got Brian Volkweis coming on from The Toys That Made Us. He's going to talk about season 3, and this is the part that I'm excited about too. In a couple weeks, we'll be deep diving into Disney Plus. We've got our Mandalorian review coming in 3.
You're seeing all the ads for it now.
Weeks.
It's all over the place. It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube, which is kind of bold. I think put it on YouTube is kind of in your face kind of situation. But yeah,
gonna be fun. We'll see y'all next week.